Hey guys, Brendan, by the way, that audio guy. I'm going to show you how to get your music louder using a limiter. Now, before I do this, I want you to watch my video on dynamic range and why it's important so you don't get confused and excited about making your music louder without understanding what's going on behind the scenes. So that being said, let's look at how to do this. So I'm just using the limiter built into Logic. Now basically what a limiter is it is a compressor with a very, very high ratio. And if you watch my video how a compressor really works, then you know that the more you increase the ratio, the more it will kind of chop off your high-end peaks. So with a limiter, you're basically saying, okay, I'm not going to let anything go above this signal. I am limiting that. A lot of people say brick walling that. Kind of think of it like scissors almost, and you're just like, just clipping off those high ends. So there's different types of limiters. There's like soft limiting, there is hard limiting, there's brick wall limiting, there's smart limiting, dynamic limiting. There's so many different types of limiting, and depending on the source you feed into it, each one of those may play a really important role in shaping the tone of your song. If you're getting more of a harder, heavy hitting like electronic song, then I would maybe go for more of a harder type limiter just to keep everything kind of right there when it's hitting hard. But if you're going for more of a soft folk song, you don't want to limit it, one, really hard, and two, you don't want to do a hard, like choppy kind of limiting. So experiment with different types of limiters, and that's what they're there for. They are just basically like different types of compressors. They are different kinds of tone shaping tools for you to help make your music sound better. So a limiter works like a compressor, but like if you're looking at this Logic one, you can't really control the threshold or the release time. Now there's other limiters like an ozone. Okay, so this one is called a maximizer, and here are all the different types of modes: hard, soft, IRC 1, 2, and 3. You can turn on and off inner sample detection, which is basically inner sample peaking. You can change the threshold, and then the margin, which is the out ceiling. So that basically is saying, okay, when I limit stuff, you're increasing the volume, but I don't want anything to go past this point. So if you're like exporting to iTunes or whatever, you can do -1 as the margin, and then you can ensure that there will be no clipping in the down conversion of your wave to MP3. Then, of course, in here, you can control how fast or slow you want it to react, and a whole bunch of other things. But in a simple limiter like this Logic one, you have input, which increases your input, and your gain, okay, which is your limiting, like your threshold, and then your out ceiling, which is that thing I was talking about, the margin. So I usually like to start just from right off the get-go. I like to start at -1 on my out ceiling, and I just like to measure to make sure that my average levels are around -10. And you can do that by, if you're in Logic, or any DAW has this. They're just called different things. So in here, it's the level meter. And there's dozens and dozens of metering plugins on the internet. So if you don't have one or you're not sure where it is in your DAW, just search metering for whatever DAW, or just, go download a free plugin that does metering. So in here, I'm going to look at the RMS and the peak. So let's take a listen. So RMS we know is average level. So that is measured right here by this blue knob. So if we head there, see, that's that lighter blue. And the peak is basically where we are peaking. And so this is saying, okay, our dynamic range is from the peak to the RMS. So right now it looks like we're getting, around maybe 13, 14 area. So if we increase our gain, let's increase our input a little bit. All right. So now we are starting to get up a lot closer. It looks like we're getting really close to 5. So we're probably at 6 or 7. For me, that is way too hard limited. Okay. Because if you can tell, it sounds squashed and it sounds really aggressive, and we don't want that because you're losing your dynamic range and it doesn't hit as hard when it's level matched with other songs. So if we were to disable that, so if you ever make a mix or a song and you go and throw it in your car and you're like, man, why is this so quiet? It's because you need to use a limiter to bring it up, but you don't want to overuse that limiter. So where would be a healthy range to do it? Well, let me show you. So let's turn that back on. Let's reset this thing. So I'm just going to increase slowly. I would say about right there, because it looks like we're hitting average of -10. Maybe we could back off just a hair. And that's it. So our total increase in volume from, our bass song to now that we're putting on the limiter, we're going up 7.4 dB and then another 0.8, which is 8.2 dB. So, could we do the same thing by doing this? Yeah, we could. Let's try that. Same thing. Just different ways of doing it. This is saying, okay, I'm going to set my threshold wherever, and this is saying, okay, this is the input. This is the way I'm setting it in. You have so many different types of limiters, so yours may or may not say these exact terms, but that's basically how you use a limiter. You have your threshold, and you have sometimes, depending on the limiter, your response time. So play with it, but don't over limit. That's how you get your tracks to sound louder. Everyone always is saying, well, how do you get it to sound so loud without clipping? That's how, using a limiter. Now just remember, keep it dynamic. Remember to subscribe to the YouTube channel and sign up for my email list where I will send you exclusive content that I only send to the people on that list. And also head over to itsthatAudioguide.com, and I will see you guys soon.